That was awesome. Let's talk about cleaning up the engine bay. So usually once a month, if not more, I see a post on either the forums or here on Facebook about what do these lines do that run to the throttle body. Typically they're the coolant lines for the throttle body. They're heater lines that go to the throttle body. I'll show you what we're looking at and what they do. So those lines are actually water lines that come from the steam vent tube. They go through the throttle body. Initially they were put there by GM to keep the throttle bodies from freezing up in cold weather. They also help a little bit with emissions. We know that warmer air gets better fuel mileage, but typically their reasoning behind it was so the throttle bodies didn't freeze up. Most of these cars are fair weather drivers. To say that they were so they don't freeze up, that might be a possibility since they're made in Canada. I would like to think that they had some emissions reason behind it, but they had been doing it clearing from the TPI cars that they had it. So could be wrong there, just a guess. But I'll show you these lines and where they usually would go. This car I'm working on, it's already been bypassed, but right here is one of the nipples that comes to the heater hose, and right here's the other one. So from the factory, what you would see from this vent line that comes back to the back of the heads, this hose would have a 90-degree and go right into this nipple. Then it would go through the bottom of the throttle body, come out of this one, and have another S hose that would come to the top of the radiator right here. In order to bypass this, it's pretty simple. You just take one piece of heater hose, hook it up to the vent pipe, and you'll run it all the way through here to this. I'm glad I'm actually going over this. Looks like I do have a hose replaced right here. But that's how we bypass it. It doesn't really affect any starting. There's nothing wrong with the cooling system. You might get a little bit of air in it, but since it comes way up high and it's a steam vent tube, it's going to bleed itself out if you do bypass this. What it does leave you is 2 empty steam pipes. Now people always see these empty and they're like, oh, what do I put over them? I got to cap them. No, you don't have to cap these at all. If you have it, it's just open to the atmosphere. Nothing goes on inside there that needs to be plugged or capped. Now, what I will say on them is it looks a little bit ugly. So since it looks a little bit ugly, how can we clean it up? When I was in high school and I was a little bit younger, I always wanted to do something to the car, make it look a little bit better, be a little faster, whatever I wanted to do that didn't cost any money. So today I'm going to show you how we can eliminate those. It's a pretty easy thing. It'll take you maybe an hour at most, depending on how nice you want it to be and if you decide to paint it. And it'll clean those nipples off there and save you from spending $80 from a bypass housing to hold the IAC or the idle air control motor from other companies. So let's get to it. Here's the intake manifold and throttle body setup off of my car. As you can see, there is no coolant lines coming off my throttle body on either side. Just looks nice and clean. IAC is right there. So first off, what we need to do is hunt down a throttle body so we can make it look like this one. Intake galore over here. Obviously got all of the intakes. So there's a throttle body right there. Extra water pumps. Grease gun laying on the ground. That's convenient. And that should work. Just like I was talking, actually. You can see that someone's capped this one off before. They put that on there. Just, I don't know if it's they thought for looks, whatever they need to. It's about ready to rot off. But still, looking at them, there's quite a bit of difference there between the two and how clean they're going to look. What we're going to do here, put this over here. We'll get some tools and we'll strip this down. Okay, so the first things we're going to need to do is take this housing off. So we're going to need to get all these screws out. What I would like to do is take off the idle air control motor first. Put these screws where we'll lose them. And I do mean where we will lose them. Okay, idle air control's out. You might treat it a little nicer than that. This is just a throttle body I've had laying around. So now we're going to take out all these screws here. That's why you put it in the vise. Or you hang on to it. That was awesome. One thing I should say about this mod is I originally did this with a Dremel tool. A lot of people always say, I don't have the equipment or the tools that you have. I can't do that stuff. This is really, my first time I did this was with a Dremel tool from Walmart. And I was probably 17 years old and did it in our driveway. Okay, and you see how easy that came off. There's the housing. Has a couple dowel pins in it. One thing I'll say that you need to do is try to be very careful with this gasket. If you can get it off in one piece, that's great. Just like that. Otherwise, if it is stuck to the housing, leave it there. You can get another one, but we're going to go ahead and reuse that one. So we are done with the throttle body right now. We're going to put this in a place that it won't get full of aluminum chips. In this housing right here, you can actually see that this is the idle air control. And this is what allows airflow into the throttle body when the blades are shut to maintain your idle. Right here is what we can cut around. What we're going to do is I want to leave 3 bolt holes. So we're going to leave this one, and this one. So we're going to cut all of this off and just shave around this outline. So the nice thing about doing that is, where do we have to cut? Well, if we flip it over, you can see this little inset outline here. That's actually your cutting. You're going to actually cut right on the outside of that. Take a rag. Some people have rubber jaws. I don't. I'm going to take a rag right here. I should say I do have rubber jaws. I have no clue where they're at. I'm sure I put them in a place I would remember them, but they are nowhere close. So we're going to kind of cinch this down right here. Make sure it's not going to go anywhere. Get our tools. So we're going to use a Milwaukee 4.5-inch grinder here. It's just a little bit easier for what I have. Like I said, you can use a Dremel, die grinder. You can even use an air saw, 3-inch cutoff wheel, whatever you got. Heck, you could probably use a hand saw if you were patient enough. So we're going to use that. Cannot stress to you how important using safety glasses is. First thing we're going to do, test the grinder. We're going to cut this off. Step 1, complete. Turn it on its side. And we're going to come right across here. Step 2, done. We want to maintain these 3 bolt holes. So now we've cut it down to a small shape, just like that. We're going to switch discs and we're going to clean up all of this part. I'm going to go with a flap disc like this. Now, we can round this, make it a little bit nicer. It doesn't really matter, but you can see what we get. I need to deburr that just a little bit more. So we have this all nicely cut down. We've deburred this so our screws will still fit nice and flush. We need to take some brake clean all of that idle air passage out really nicely. 3 screws to hold this down. We're still going to have a nice sealing surface all the way around this. Same snip right here, snip here. Those now will leave us a nice little gasket for just that. Let's go ahead and we'll put it back on our throttle body here. We're going to take this gasket here. We're going to trim it right above this bolt hole. And then right below this one here. I drop it, nice work. Okay, 1, 2, 3 bolts. Now, we should really brake clean that out. We'll get a little bit of brake clean. Clean this out, close your eyes, hope for the best. Okay, gasket on. You can put a little bit of silicone on those just to give them a little better seal. I actually have never had to. I just know that you could. Really try to tighten them down even because you only have 3 screws in a triangle pattern, so they need to be as even as possible so you get a good seal and you don't crack any ears off the housing. And so we don't have those ugly ears coming off the side. Stick the idle air control motor back in it. And just like that, you have eliminated the coolant passages. So from the top, when you're looking at it in the engine bay, it's going to look just like that. A lot of people wonder, well, is that really going to be enough sealing surfaces with just those 3 screws? Every aftermarket delete that has this, you can look it up on several pages. If you search coolant bypass or IAC, idle air control housings, for LT1 or TPI, every single one of those aftermarket billet ones, they usually run about $80 to $100, will only have these 3 screws that hold it. So there you go. That's how we are going to bypass the coolant bypass for the throttle body, and we're going to go ahead and clean up the throttle body itself to make it look nice on the engine bay. We know that these LT1 engine bays are already cluttered enough. All these lines and hoses going by it. So it's just nice to have some of that stuff out of the way when you work on it, and it looks good when you pop the hood. Over the next couple of months, I'm going to be posting some videos that help clean up the engine bay. Cleaning up the engine bay not only makes it look better, but also makes it a lot easier to work on. So we'll do some fuel line relocations. We might even clean some stuff up that's supposed to be there and make things look nicer, smoother, and simpler to work on. So thanks for watching. See you next time.